This episode of Tryin is brought to you by Haviland Pro DS.
Welcome to Tryin.
I want the big bass.
Oh yeah. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Michael End.
And well, we made it to SEMA. Obviously, we talked about that when we showed you the 3D car in the last episode. 3D printed cars. I still can't get over
It's really
that.
cool.
Do you notice, was the ride down to SEMA any smoother?
It felt very smooth compared to what that Volvo used to feel like. It was you shake, rattled and rolled.
Basically, the original shocks and McPherson struts in the front end of the Volvo had 160,000 miles, so upgraded the shocks and struts and actually put in a set of what they call sport springs or lowering springs. So they're a progressive spring, lowers it about 1.5 inches, and it rides so much better.
This Volvo's getting a lot of upgrades.
Yes. Yes, and my wife's going to be very happy about that, and then I'll be able to upgrade my truck and get my diesel on.
One more upgrade that we're doing, because one problem that I had with coming down here was there's no stereo system in the car.
There was a stereo system in the car. It was non-functioning, much like the shocks before I replaced them. It's the original stereo.
So we used a little portable speaker coming down, and when you're getting to highway speeds, you can't really hear it very well.
I can hear it pretty well. I think your hearing's going.
Oh, maybe. But so we're gonna put a new stereo,
Yes.
new speakers in this car, and
well, it's kind of funny. Part of what prompted this is you were staring in the kicker booth at speakers,
they make the big bass.
They make the big bass. The problem is it's really hard to fit the big bass into a small car without doing like an enclosure or doing a lot of really custom built-ins. And they pointed us out to the Kicker Hideaway, which is essentially an 8-inch subwoofer, 150 watt amp. So we ran down to the local big box store. Well, what's crazy about this, let me find
this thing is very heavy.
It is. This is very dense. But what's really insane about this is an 8-inch subwoofer and an amp. This would totally fit under the seat in my truck. I'm gonna see if we can get it under the passenger seat of the Volvo.
So we don't have a workspace here. So we're literally in our hotel parking lot.
Yes.
And we're gonna do all the work here and hope that they don't kick us out, I guess.
I don't think they'll mind. It's that kind of motel.
So we're throwing this in under the seat and we're putting in new speakers?
Yes.
And maybe more things.
Wait till you see the wiring diagram.
Oh God. So the wiring diagram that we found online is not matching up with what we actually found in the car. So instead of searching forever, I'm gonna use a just AA battery to find which speakers are mapped to which wire. So we have two, these should match together, who knows? There we go. So I'm hearing some static from the left driver speaker right now. So we can match that up with our stereo.
I actually pulled the speakers out of the front and rear. If I had a drill with me, I would have drilled these pop rivets out after I pulled the covers off. Instead, I pretty much ripped them out with a set of vice grips and then hammered out the centers. Once that was done, I put the clips that came with the factory speakers in place, screwed the factory speakers in. I also spent a lot of time with crazy glue gluing the original speaker covers back together, basically the backs for them, which both offset the speaker from the door and allow me to use the stock speaker covers. Nobody's gonna break into a Volvo to steal the stock speakers, but the plastic in the stock speaker covers was like, 20 freaking years old and was shattering before we actually started pulling and ripping the rivets out.
After a little bit of work and crimping, I was able to get the head unit actually turning on, which is a good sign.
Normally we would put heat shrink tubing over this and shrink it down, but our heat shrink tubing supply was left out in the sun.
So it's a little pre-shrunk, which isn't super useful.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna tape it up for now.
Do not leave heat shrink tubing in the sun. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is sponsored by Haviland Pro DS, a fully synthetic oil with composite shield technology formulated to deal with the most vicious of high temperatures and to minimize wear on your engine. I love the way oil smells. Haviland Pro DS, we want to thank them for sponsoring this episode of Tryin.
I thought you were gonna lick it.
No, I'm not quite that intense about oil, but you know what? We haven't lost any oil. I like that. Kicker's Hideaway is really cool. It's a small, self-contained 8-inch subwoofer box with a 150 watt amplifier inside of it and a pretty nice, actually, wiring harness. There's one little problem with our installation. We wanted to put it all the way at the back of the wagon, but the harness was about 4 feet short to get to the front of the wagon. So we've temporarily located it in the passenger's footwell so that Michael can enjoy all of the bass.
It vibrates against my leg.
Vibrations.
Sounds good.
I am so stoked. It sounds great. You sure you don't have to fly.
I'd much rather fly. I like the peanuts.
And I get to pick all the music on the ride home.
But I was a little worried going into this because new technology, old car and speakers, I didn't know how it would work out.
It's usually not too bad. There's a wiring harness. You pull it out. You either cut and solder, or in our case, lots and lots of crimping. But this had this weird Volvo semi-proprietary, accessory amp and speakers. And we ended up having to take the entire center column apart and pull the amp out and yank 3 feet of cable back up through this. That was nuts. Once that was done, though,
it was real easy. And the kicker sounds really good.
it is super clean, very, very tight and punchy. I don't have my full array of music to listen to it, but so far it has sound fantastic. I'm playing so much around with the subwoofer settings inside of here and the EQ settings. It's been, there will be experimentation for weeks to come.
But overall, for a road install, I think we did splendidly. And
It would have been nice if I pre-ordered the dashboard adapter.
Nah.
Duct tape?
Nah.
Gorilla
yes.
tape. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Tryin. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Michael Hand.
We'll see you next week.
Look, I'm zany. Whoa.